That's nice. I'm going to be doing a short reading. And this is coming from a book which I'll probably source. This is the beauty of it. I can source it. There's a full PDF of this book available online. I purchased a copy. I ordered it special. I had to order it. I couldn't get it anywhere. And I don't even know what the price is on the back. Well, 27 Canadians was listed on it. It's probably close to what I paid. This camera's over here. Okay, high camera. So what is it? Yeah. This is from the Illuminatus trilogy, which is a weird book at best. I don't really want to show anything. Like, there's dolphins on the cover. Probably means that, you know, new agey or something. Anyhow, this is important reading. I'm trying to be serious because this is a good reading. It's just an appendix from the back of the book. This is not in line with the story of the fictitious novel, a long trilogy of a novel, and an appendix from it called Appendix Teth, Hagbard's booklet. After prolonged pleading and vehement prayers of entreaty, the authors finally prevailed upon Hagbard Celine to allow us to quote some further illuminating passages from his booklet, Never Whistle While You're Pissing. Before we made these frantic efforts, he wanted us to publish the whole thing. And there's also a footnote here on the title of the book, Never Whistle While You're Pissing. The title, he informs us, is taken from R.H. Blythe's Zen in English Literature and Oriental Classics. The story is instructive. Blythe, studying Zazen, or sitting Zen, or Dhyana meditation, in a monastery at Kyoto, asks his Roshi if there was any further discipline he should adopt to accelerate his process, or his progress. The Roshi replies, concisely, never whistle while you're pissing. And then there's also some other citations here. C.F. Gurdjieff's endless diatribes about concentration, the Raja on Huxley's Island who unleashes talking minor birds to remind his citizens constantly, here and now, boys, here and now. And Jesus' whatever thy hand findest to do, do it with all thy heart. Which, yeah, they all amount to the same teaching. Here then are some of the keys. This is back into the text again. Here then are some of the keys to the strange head of Hagbard Celine. I once overheard two botanists arguing over a damn thing that had blasphemously sprouted in a college yard. One claimed that the damn thing was a tree, and the other claimed that it was a shrub. And each had good scholarly arguments, and yet they were still debating when I left them. The world is forever spawning damned things, things that are neither tree nor shrub, fish nor fowl, black nor white, and the categorical thinker can only regard the spiky and buzzing world of sensory fact as a profound insult to his card index system of classification. Worst of all are the facts which violate common sense, that dreary bog of sullen prejudice and muddy inertia. The whole history of science is the odyssey of a pixelated card indexer, perpetually sailing between such damn things and desperately juggling his classifications to fit them in, just as the history of politics is the futile epic of a long series of attempts to line up the damn things and cajole them to march in line and in regiment. Every ideology is a mental murder, a reduction of dynamic living processes to static classifications, and every classification is a damnation, just as every inclusion is an exclusion. In a busy, buzzing universe where no two snowflakes are identical, and no two trees are identical, and no two people are identical, and indeed the smallest subatomic particle, we are assured, is not even identical with itself from one microsecond to the next, every card index system is a self-delusion. Or to put it more charitably, as Nietzsche says, we are all better artists than we realize. It's easy to see that the label Jew is a damnation in Nazi Germany. But actually, the label Jew is a damnation anywhere. even where anti-Semitism does not exist. He is a Jew. He is a doctor. He is a poet. These all mean to the card indexing center of the brain, of the cortex, that my experience with him will be like my experience with other Jews, other doctors, and other poets. Thus, individuality is ignored when identity is asserted. At any party or any place where strangers meet, watch this mechanism in action. Behind the friendly overtures, there is a wariness as each person fishes for the label that will identify and damn the other. Finally, it is revealed, oh, he's an advertising copywriter. Oh, he's an engine lathe operator. Both parties relax. And now they know how to behave, what roles to play in the game. 99% of each has been damned. The other is reacting to the 1% that has been labeled by the card index machine. Certain damnations are socially and intellectually necessary, of course. A custard pie thrown in a comedian's face is damned by the physicist, who analyzes it according to Newtonian laws of motion. These equations tell us all we want to know about the impact of the pie upon the face, but nothing about the human meaning of the pie throwing. A cultural anthropologist, analyzing the social function of a comedian as shaman, court jester, king surrogate, explains the pie throwing as the survival of the feast of fools, and the killing of the king's double. And not the king himself. I've made a note here in the margin myself. See the golden bough. This damns the subject in another way. A psychoanalyst, finding an Oedipal castration ritual here, has performed a third damnation, and the Marxist, seeing an outlet for the worker's repressed rage against his bosses, performs a fourth. Each damnation has its values and its uses, but it is nonetheless a damnation, unless its partial and arbitrary nature is recognized. The emphasis is in the text. Unless its partial and arbitrary nature is recognized. The poet who compares the pie to the comedian's face, the pie in the, okay, cut. The poet who compares the pie in the comedian's face with the decline of the West or his own lost love commits a fifth damnation, but in this case, the game element and whimsicality of the symbolism are safely obvious. At least one would hope so. Reading the New Critics occasionally raises doubts on this point. I have never read the New Critics, so I don't get the joke. Human society can be structured either according to the principle of authority or according to the principle of liberty. Authority is the state social configuration in which people act as superiors and inferiors, a sadomasochistic relationship. Liberty is a dynamic social configuration in which people act as equals, an erotic relationship. In every interaction between people, either authority or liberty is the dominant factor, according to this text. Families, churches, lodges, clubs, or corporations are either more authoritarian than libertarian, or more libertarian than authoritarian. It becomes obvious as we proceed that the most pugnacious and intolerant form of authority is the state, which even today dares to assume an absolutism which the church itself has long ago surrendered, and to enforce obedience with the techniques of the church's old and shameful inquisition. Every form of authoritarianism is, however, a small state, even if it has only a membership of 2. Freud's remark to the effect that the delusion of one man is neurosis and the delusion of many men is religion can be generalized. Authoritarianism of one man is crime, and the authoritarianism of many men is the state. Benjamin Tucker wrote quite accurately. This is another thing I'm getting brought out of this, because I was going to say people through this, but I might as well read it as it was written. Back in 1973, for 75, this was published. 75. Aggression is simply another name for government, writes Benjamin Tucker. Aggression, invasion, government are interchangeable terms. The essence of government is control, or an attempt to control. He who attempts to control another is the governor, or a governor, an aggressor, an invader. and the nature of such invasion is not changed, whether it be made by one man upon another man after the manner of the ordinary criminal, or by one man upon all other men after the manner of an absolute monarch, or by all other men upon one man after the manner of a modern democracy. Tucker's use of the word invasion is remarkably precise, considering he wrote that more than 50 years before the basic discoveries of ethology. Every act of authority is, in fact, an invasion of the psychic and physical territory of another person. We're going to stop saying man, maybe. Every fact of science was once damned. Every invention was considered impossible. Every discovery was a nervous shock to some other orthodoxy. Every artistic innovation was denounced as fraud or folly, or both. Entire web of culture and progress, everything on earth that is made by people and not given to us by nature, is the concrete manifestation of some person's refusal to bow to authority. We would own no more, know no more, and be no more than the first ape-like hominids if it were not for the rebellious, the recalcitrant, and the intransigent. As Oscar Wilde truly said, disobedience was man's original virtue. Disobedience. A human brain which loves to read descriptions of itself as the universe's most marvelous organ of perception is an even more marvelous organ of rejection. The naked facts of our economic game are easily discoverable and undeniable once stated. But conservatives, who are usually individuals who profit every day of their lives from these facts, manage to remain oblivious to them, or to see them through very rosy-tinted and distorted lenses. Similarly, the revolutionary ignores the total testimony of history about the natural course of revolutions, through violence, to chaos, and then back to a starting point. We must remember that thought is abstraction. In Einstein's metaphor, the relationship between a physical fact and our mental reception of that fact is not the relationship between beef and beef broth. A simple matter of extraction and condensation. Rather, as Einstein goes on, is like the relationship between our overcoat and the ticket given to us when we check the overcoat. In other words, human perception involves coding even more than crude sensing. The mesh of language, or of mathematics, or of the school of art, or of any human system of abstraction, any system of human abstracting, gives to our mental constructs the structure not of the original fact, but of the symbol system into which it was coded. Just as a map maker colors a nation purple not because it is purple, but because his map code demands it. But every code excludes certain things, blurs other things, and overemphasizes still other things. Nijinski's celebrated leap through the window at the climax of Le Spectre d'une Rose is best coded in the ballet notation system used by choreographers. Verbal language falters badly in attempting to convey it. Painting or sculpture could capture totally the magic of one instant, but one instant only of it. The physicist's equation, force equals mass times acceleration, highlights one aspect of it, missed by all these other codes, but loses everything else about it. Every perception is influenced, formed, and structured by the habitual coding habits, mental game habits of the perceiver. All authority is a function of coding, of game rules. People have arisen again and again, armed with pitchforks to fight armies with cannon. People have also submitted docilely to the weakest and most tottery of oppressors. It all depends on the extent to which coding distorts perception and conditions the physical and mental reflexes. It seems at first glance that the authority could not exist at all if all men were cowards or if no men were cowards, but flourishes as it does only because most men are cowards and some men are thieves. Actually, the inner dynamics of cowardice and submission on the one hand and of heroism and rebellion on the other are seldom consciously realized either by the ruling class or the servile class. Submission is identified not with cowardice but with virtue. Rebellion not with heroism but with evil. To the Roman slave owners, Spartacus was not a hero, and the obedient slaves were not cowards. Spartacus was a villain, and the obedient slaves were virtuous. The obedient slaves believed this also. The obedient always think of themselves as virtuous rather than cowardly. Good point. If authority implies submission, liberation implies equality. Authority exists when one person obeys another, and liberty exists when people do not obey other people. Thus, to say that authority exists is to say that class and caste exist, that submission and inequality exist. To say that liberty exists is to say that classlessness exists, to say that brotherhood and equality exist. Again, brotherhood I would exchange for some other word if I knew it. Cousinhood, whatever that means, right? Authority, by dividing people into classes, creates dichotomy, disruption, hostility, fear, disunion. Liberty, by placing people on an equal footing, creates association, amalgamation, union, security. When the relationships between people are based on authority and coercion, they are driven apart. When based on liberty and non-aggression, they are drawn together. Their facts are self-evident. There, as in T-H-E-R-E. Facts are self-evident and axiomatic. If authoritarianism did not possess the inbuilt, pre-programmed double-blind structure of a game without end, people would long ago have rejected it and embraced libertarianism. The usual pacifist complained about war, that young people were led to death by old people who sit at home. We should just well say here that young men are led to death by old men who sit at home manning bureaucrats' desks and taking no risks themselves. Misses the point entirely. Demands that the old should be drafted to fight their own wars, or that the leaders of the warring nations should be sent to the front lines on the first day of the battle, etc., are aimed at an assumed sense of justice that simply does not exist. Sense of justice. To the typical submissive citizen of authoritarian society, it is normal, obvious, and natural that he should obey older and more dominant males, even at the risk of his life, even against his own kindred, and even in causes that are unjust or absurd. The charge of the Light Brigade, a story of a group of young males led to their death in a palpably idiotic situation, and only because they obeyed a census order without stopping to think, has been and remains a popular poem, because unthinking obedience by young males to older males is the most highly prized of all conditioned reflexes within human and hominid societies. Perhaps not with the bonobos, but anyhow. Well, I don't know. Anyway, the mechanism by which authority and submission are implanted into the human mind is coding of perception. That which fits into the code is accepted, all else is damned. It is damned to being ignored, brushed aside, unnoticed, and if these fail, it is damned to being forgotten. A worst form of damnation is reserved for those things which cannot be ignored. These are done with the brain's projected prejudices until, encrusted beyond recognition, they are capable of being fitted into the system, classified, card-indexed, buried. This is what happens to every damn thing which is too prickly and sticky to be excommunicated entirely. As Josiah Warren remarked, it is dangerous to understand new things too quickly. Almost always we have not understood them. We have murdered them and mummified the corpses. A monopoly on the means of communication may define a ruling elite more precisely than the celebrated Marxian formula of monopoly on the means of production. Since humans extend their nervous system through channels of communication like the written word, the telephone, radio, etc., they who control these media control part of the nervous system of every member of society. The contents of these media become part of the contents of every individual's brain. Thus, in pre-literate societies, taboos on the spoken word are more numerous and more draconic is what he had here, than any more complex level of social organization. With the invention of written speech, hieroglyphic, ideographic, or alphabetical, the taboos are shifted to this medium. There is less concern about what people say and more concern about what they write. Some of the first societies to achieve literacy, such as Egypt and the Mayan culture of ancient Mexico, have evidently kept the knowledge of their hieroglyphs a religious secret, which only the higher orders of the priestly and royal families are allowed to share. Were allowed to share. The same process repeats endlessly. Each step forward in the technology of communication is more heavily tabooed than the earlier steps. Thus, in America today, post Lenny Bruce, 1975, when he's writing, although I'm pretty sure the booklet was written before 1975, one seldom hears of convictions for spoken blasphemy or obscenity, post Lenny Bruce. Prosecution of books still continues, but higher courts increasingly interpret the laws in a liberal fashion, and most writers feel fairly confident they can publish virtually anything. Movies are growing almost desacralized as books, although the fight is still heating in this area. Television, the newest medium, remains encased in Neolithic taboo. When the TV pundits committed lèse-majesté after an address by the then dominant male, one Richard Nixon, one of his lieutenants quickly informed them that they had overstepped, and the whole tribe, except for the dissident minority, cheered for the reassertion of tradition. When a more efficient medium arrives, the taboos on television will decrease. That's the last of it, and yeah, he made that prediction in 1975, at least in 1975, and most likely 1960s when this was written, I would guess, because they don't actually source anything about when the. So yeah, I was saying before I got cut off my own phone that the booklet had to be written in the 60s, insofar as there was ever a booklet. But I would think that the person who wrote it, whoever Hagbard Celine is in terms of Discordian, because it's a Discordian holy text I'm reading from, so to speak, holy text. It's holy text. There's no pictures, a few ideograms here and there, but it's holy text, right? Look, words every page, nothing but text. Holy, indivisible text. You could divide it, but anyway.